Hello and welcome back to my channel. This card is my submission for the current Lawn Fanatics Challenge. To start with, I am using this scalloped slimline with hearts die. I'm only going to use the outside piece, but I've cut this multiple times. So here I've kind of masked off some of the edges just to leave a crisp white border. I did not mask them all off because I will be layering pieces over the top of this. So using my tumbled glass distress oxide, I'm going to ink roughly 2/3 of the way from the bottom of the panel all the way up using this cloud stencil. There's going to be a decent amount of stuff going on my card, so I'm not super concerned with the way the background looks. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just wanted to give some interest and a little bit of color to my sky. Now this is where things start looking a little bit weird. So I have my stitched wave borders, and I have cut out just a piece of one of the panels, and I am inking it up with Salty Ocean Distress Oxide. Nothing fancy here, I just wanted to lay down some color. I do have the very side masked off with some washi tape, but not the bottom because part of this isn't going to show. So quickly just spritzing this with some water to give it a little texture and interest. And then I'm moving on. I have the stitched hillside border dies, and I am going to ink this up with Antique Linen Distress Oxide. Now for this will be a front panel for the most part, so I do have each of the scalloped edges masked off so that they stay white. So this, I'm going a little bit darker in some areas and lighter in others. And now I'm going to take brushed corduroy Distress Oxide. I'm going to water that down a little bit, and then I'm going to add some splatter because, well, this will help it look more like sand. But also, I just like adding splatter for texture. So you'll see this again, just, different colors. Moving on, I have a couple of little pieces that are cut out with both the scallop die as well as my simple grassy hillsides. I'm going to ink these both up with Mowed Lawn. And this bigger piece is actually going to be behind the smaller piece. So I don't care if the bottom looks a little splotchy. Most of it will be covered up. And next, I'm taking my Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide, and you guessed it, I'm going to add some splatter. I just can't help myself. I really do like the way it looks. So I'm going to splatter both of these grass panels. You've seen this done before. And then the last piece to this little puzzle is some stitched mountain borders. Now I've just cut out part of the panel like I've done all the other ones. They will all layer in a way that kind of makes sense. I'm using the previous greens that I've already used, but for the Rustic Wilderness, I'm actually kind of getting a lot on my brush and then sort of tapping it on. I felt like it gave it a slightly different texture. Still was not textured enough for me though, so of course, back to the splatter. This is again with the Rustic Wilderness. And even after all that, I still felt like it needed a little something, so I brought out the Rustic Wilderness regular distress ink, and I'm adding some splatter with that too. The mountains here in North Carolina are generally covered by trees, so I wanted it to look like that. So, green mountains. I don't usually think to make them that way, which is kind of funny because that's what North Carolina mountains look like, tree covered. Now I'm just going to take all of the washi tape off to reveal the nice white borders. And I'm going to start laying the pieces. And here you'll start to see it come together because right now it looks insane. Like it really does look like I didn't know what I was doing. This whole portion took a while to figure out. And I think I probably sat down for somewhere between half an hour and an hour just figuring out which pieces I was going to cut and how I was going to stack them together to look like a cohesive scene. And now moving on to my stamped images, I have used something from On the Beach, Coaster Critters, Let's Go Nuts, Crazy Antics, Pool Party, Holiday Helpers, Unicorn Picnic, Ahoy Matey, Life is Good, and then I used Plain and Simple for the airplane. I actually forgot to show that one. Now, some information about North Carolina. Our state animal, well, mammal, is the gray squirrel. So I decided that the critters featured in my card would be squirrels, which works for me because I love using them. I'm only showing the coloring of one squirrel here, but I did use several. Now, from Crazy Antics, I decided I would use this little cola can, and I'm doing this because North Carolina is where Pepsi originated from. So I believe that was in New Bern, North Carolina. Maybe I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think that's where it was. So I did my best to make this look like a Pepsi can. I've got a pair of just flip-flops from one of the beach sets just to make the beach look more beachy. And then here I'm being really simple with this roller coaster. This is supposed to represent Carowinds. I've never been, but I know it's like a North Carolina amusement park. And then I have this lighthouse from Life is Good, and I'm coloring it like a lot of lighthouses I've seen from North Carolina, which is just black and white. Now, there is a plane because North Carolina has the claim of first in flight. And I really didn't know what I was doing when I colored this one. I had a hard time. I was trying to get the colors balanced and I don't know. I didn't love it. Now, the little donut is to represent Krispy Kreme donuts that originated in Winston-Salem, I believe. I wouldn't normally think to do a chocolate donut from them because I usually just get the glazed donuts, but I didn't have a proper size donut for that. Now, this little lid from Holiday Helpers is now my donut box, and I used some Cricut pens. I didn't have the perfect green, but I just tried to make that look a little bit like a Krispy Kreme donut box. And if you've had Krispy Kreme donuts before, you'll recognize the box. Now, I have some gems, and that is for gem mining. You can do that in the mountains. I've actually done that once. They give you like well, at least the one I went to, they give you like a bucket with some sand, and there's some gems in it. You have to pay so much for it, and you can get it turned into jewelry later. It's kind of fun, especially with little kids. I have a bottle of sunscreen because, well, you kind of need that when you're at the beach. I have the little banner from the Plain and Simple stamp set because for my sentiment, I needed to say North Carolina, and Carolina will be big, and I needed to put North up there. So I'm going to write that in later. Now, my little pilot is a squirrel. I am doing some surgery. So, unfortunately, he had to lose his head. I just kind of cut that around to make it look like it was popping out of the plane. I've got my little excited squirrel, which is one of my favorite squirrels. That's going to be right there in front of the roller coaster. And then my little chubby squirrel, he's going to be eating the donuts and drinking the Pepsi. So here I just have a fine liner, and I'm going to write North on the banner. I thought about stamping it, but I didn't really like the size or shape of the letters I had for it. So I just wrote it in by hand. I guess it gives it more of a wavy look anyway. That'll just be hanging off the back of my plane. And for Carolina, I'm using Henry's ABC dies, and I've just colored these blue. I did realize while editing this video that I am missing a little bit of footage from where I'm adding detail to the word Carolina, so I apologize for that. I think I've been a little rusty with getting sick and dealing with everybody else in my house getting sick, and then my husband being on vacation and us having to deal with things. Yeah, it's just been a lot of non-crafting. So anyway, if this card does not make you want to visit North Carolina, I don't know what will. Looks pretty fun to me. I mean, you got mountains on one side, beach on the other, a bunch of stuff in between. It's a cool state. I'm not originally from North Carolina. All right, here's me adding some little details to my letters. Of course, you already see some up there. This is where I kind of missed some video. But after that, my card is complete. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Bye!